Welcome, everybody, to our forecast and discussion for August 2020. My name is Jona Bryndis, and I am very excited to be here with you tonight. Looking into the future, to me, means looking into the past and taking a good assessment of the present. So we always start our forecast discussion here with a quick review that allows us to assess where we're at, which is very important if we want to know where we are going to go and to see what we've learned. Most of our growth process as humans, and this is very important to understand, has to do with learning what doesn't work for us, learning what is not true to us, learning what is holding us back. And so by going into the review of what was and see which of these things actually came to play. So for most people, judging here by my practice as energy coach and energy healer, July was all about finding yourself somehow, triangulating yourself. So many of you felt like in limbo, and as a result of that, you were seeking or waiting for something, seeking for purpose, seeking for answers, seeking for more fulfillment, not quite feeling that you have it in reach, but you were waiting for something to happen, maybe, or waiting for an answer to come, or a somewhat sort of passive type of energy. Yeah, and many of you felt both. So this limbo feel, right, where we can't quite make out what it is, where we need to go, where this compass needle is actually showing. And these are a lot of things that can really mess with our inner compass. And it requires us to have a really strong, grounded feeling within ourselves. And really, for many of you, it was about becoming super aware of that, becoming conscious of this present moment awareness feeling. And more importantly, when you're not, when you're actually checking out, or when you go into hyperactivity just so that you feel like you're doing something, or when you're, seeking, and just never quite feel like you're good enough or you can reach it. So it's almost like a self-sabotage, all right, that takes place because deep down we either blame ourselves and have all these self-defeating thoughts, or we externalize, we make the outer condition responsible for it. Either way, whichever one is actually true or not true is irrelevant. The point is, it doesn't actually help us to find where to go. Okay, so this is the part here that July was really good at. Now, from an energetic, spiritual point of view, it was a very intense month, like a portal opening, a shift change, a pivotal energetic shift that took place. Something that really sort of feels differently now. Maybe we're eye-opening. Maybe it was just an inner experience, and I shouldn't say just, because it really was about that inner experience. But some of you might have also had outer experiences like physical changes right now and continuing the next 6 months. Well, actually, continuing all our lives. We have to realize, that we cannot separate our physical, and in times where our physical suddenly becomes the center point of stage here, with the fear of getting sick, corona sick perhaps, or losing a loved one, or anything in that regards, it makes us more aware of our physical condition and also the things that we can do to change our physical condition. So that's a good reminder, and it does work, right? But we weren't actually doing it, or we weren't actually, well, I mean, not just in regards to physical exercise, but we weren't actually putting it into the 3D, maybe in our heads we were. But it's really important here that we take this whole situation as something that reminds us of not just the vulnerability of our body and perhaps aging and things like that, the mortality, but also how much of that we really can control. Because most of you are energetically sensitives, empaths, and sort of naturally gravitate more towards your sort of your etheric dimension of your being, right? Or at least you paid more attention to it in the past. And the same for me. And those times where I was really depressed and really low in my energy were the times where I more or less refused to take care of my physical. All right. It really changed everything for me. And I had the luck that I had a father who was a professional athlete. And he told me as a kid, he said, Jona, you can have any body that you want. There is an exercise routine, a nutritional routine. There's a routine for everything. You just need to know what you want. Okay. And I later took this and basically transposed this onto the mental and emotional and the energetic shape. It's the same thing. Now we can have any state that we want. We just need to be aware of where we're at. So then you need to know where your options are. That often requires a little bit of education or just interest. And then you got to do it, the walking the talk part. In conjunction with meditation and all these self-healing techniques on an energetic level must not be forgotten. Okay, health, happiness, and fulfillment, and even abundance comes out of a balance of our physical, emotional, mental, social, spiritual, and energetic dimension of being. All right, it's the balance of all of them. The subject of today's discussion that I wanted to bring up, namely how we really deal with those likes and dislikes in our lives and what actually creates the resistance towards, say, quote unquote negative experiences. Because last month I said something about antipathy, so that's a word, it's a Greek word for like it's the opposite of of passion, right? It's the opposite of liking, of really liking it, right? It's the anti-liking something, and sympathy, would be sort of the yeah, I like it, give me more, right? And both really mirror back our duality, the duality in us. Okay, in ego terms, we speak of avoiding pain and seeking pleasure. Okay, that's how our nervous system is designed. Yes, the one of the lower levels of our existence, of our 3D existence, which is our nervous system, not the part that is regulated by the brain, but the part that is functioning without our cognitive, our higher cognitive function. That lower level of existence is really based on sympathy and antipathy. So what makes us feel good and what doesn't make us feel good. But as sort of grown up, maturing people, we know that, just because we love it or just because we hate it doesn't necessarily mean that it's good for us or bad for us, or that it's true or not true, right? This can be very deceiving because the ego, due to this design, okay, of our nervous system, will gravitate towards the things that produce sort of fast or instant gratification, that produce, the dopamine and the serotonin in us, the feel good stuff. And the pain creates the experience of loss and grievance and heaviness in us. And those are things that both, that lead to, well, either distraction. So in the first case here of instant gratification, of dopamine, serotonin, feel good stuff, it's responsible for our susceptibility to addictions, And the second, the fear of pain, the fear of loss, the fear of heaviness leads to this inertia in us, leads to sort of wanting to keep things in our comfort zone, not to experience this heaviness or this grievance, okay, not to experience the pain, okay. So where we have this aversion really against experiencing certain things, and then we avoid them, okay. So both addiction and avoidance lead to massive inner blocks, okay, for the most part. Now, because these things are often rooted in our childhood, we're not fully aware of that mechanism, and so we think that oh, I'm sure you've heard people say this. Oh, I crave chocolate. I bet that means that my body needs chocolate. Well, the truth is, science is that if you give your body a lot of chocolate, it will start craving it. In fact, if you give your body any substance, for 3 weeks, your body will start to crave it, whether it's unhealthy or healthy. So that's a problem with our nervous system, is that we can't really rely on it as a truth detector, as a compass. Okay, it will always go sort of by the next best thing. Okay, we can create the fastest way of feel good, all right, or the least resistance, so to speak. Yeah, avoidance, aversion. Okay, and those two are the first two of 5 hindrances. And actually, this is very interesting, because this is also, you will also find this in other teachings. So this is a big sort of Buddhic teaching, right? The 5 hindrances of self-mastery. Guess what's at number 1? It's the desire. It's the addictions, the sensual, or the sensation of pleasure. Okay, which is, as you've just learned, coming mainly from your nervous system. Okay, and the desire for that, so we can measure this, the desire for that is a very low drive, not low as in like, judgmental low, but it is very low in the sense that we can't really control it. So if we feed it, okay, and this reaches through any kind of sensuality. Sexuality is a very good example, but also foods and certain behaviors and activities, watching Netflix, gaming, and obviously substance addictions, but also this need for power, this need for attention, or this need for specialness that I talked about last time. So desire as a hindrance of self-mastery can make it impossible for us, if that becomes the dominating factor, to actually, self-assess, and then, of course, also know what is really true to us and what do we really want. So desire is mostly located in the chakra system. Just to refer this here, for those of you who are interested, in the first, second, and third chakra, lower chakras, which are also part of the densest experience of our being, that has to do with the 3D aspect of our being, all right, the fleshly temptations, so to speak, whereby I really want to emphasize the fact that there's nothing wrong in a moral or judgmental way. It's just that they are extremely tempting for our ego, because our nervous system is hardwired to go by them. Okay, so we can't take our desire, and also wish this, the drive that can be activated through our desire, like chasing a love interest, or trying to reward ourselves or something like that. Those are all motivated by these lower energies in us, and they can activate quite a lot of amount of energy, but they deplete us. Okay, the second one, the aversion, basically the opposite, the resistance, the antipathy. Okay, that is something that most people are not aware of. Many of us have resistance towards certain experiences, towards certain, sometimes foods or people or places or jobs, or, all based on our mindset, based on our beliefs, okay, that we have never actually questioned. Is that really so? And sometimes also our righteousness, or the belief what is good and what is bad. Here you'll find a lot of abundance blocks that people have. It's the negativity in us that we are fostering through aversion, through resistance. Okay, it's literally sort of a negative attitude towards certain aspects of life or life altogether. The number 3 hindrance of self-mastery is the lack of purpose, the dullness, the numbness, and also the heaviness in us that creates this passivity, this waiting attitude, often also mixed with blaming and externalizing, right? This is like, oh, life is happening to me and I'm just trying to survive. Okay, sort of keeping everything sort of in that, not rocking the boat. Okay, and a lack of motivation. A lack of motivation to change something, because you've guessed it, right? The ego likes familiarity. It likes when things are sort of smooth and when there's no resistance and not too much of nothing. Okay? Yeah, the comfort zone of status quo. All right. And that leads to passivity and lack of motivation in people's life. And it's the reason why people have such a strong sort of crisis of meaning and purpose right now. Because if you've lived your life based on that paradigm, okay, and the outer sort of map that you use to navigate suddenly changes, well, then you have no idea how to recalculate your route, how to navigate that. Okay, because all you've tried was to keep everything the way it was, even if it was unhealthy. But again, here the ego, this lower energetic part of ourselves, tries to keep things in a way that and this is important here, just so you understand yourselves better, that we have this illusion of security that we can control it. All right, because if something goes out of control, it does what? It triggers fear in us. Okay, that's the 4th hindrance of self-mastery. It triggers doubt about ourselves, fear of making mistakes, fear of not being able to handle it, fear of judgment, okay, fear of maybe regretting things. I mean, it's huge cluster if you really feel into this. And it leads to indecision. It leads to people being afraid of making choices. It works against pretty much what I've talked about the last 2 months. Namely, make every decision a conscious decision, a conscious choice. Yes, self-responsibility. So fear works against self-responsibility. And without self-responsibility, guys, what does that do to us? We feel that we are not in control, right? And then we either have to externalize it and blame others for it, or we go into self-defeat. But the bottom line is the output is 0. We never actually do anything out of fear. And then we have the 5th hindrance of self-mastery, and that's a tricky one. Most of you are not aware of that. And that's kind of like the opposite of indecision. It's that hyperactive, restless. The more, the better. If I just do more, it's got to be better. With a lack of focus. This actually comes from an inner boredom, from an inner sort of lack of direction. We just adopt, and this is of course also part of what we see in our collective as a paradigm here nowadays, is this harder, more, better, more. It's like insatiable seeking and doingness, okay, all just based on our sort of physical material function. Whereas introspection, reflection, integration, internalization, those are not actually doingness things. Those are beingness things, right? So these 5 hindrances of self-mastery, okay, they are the ones that distract us, that get us off course, that make it impossible for us to know what we want, what we need, how we want it, and how we can get there, because we're too busy. We're either going for the next high, or just trying to avoid any kind of negative experience, or just sitting there and waiting for everything to just be over with, or constantly looping around in our own questions and in our own doubt, never actually being able to decide anything and to choose anything, which is also a choice, as most of you know, or just going into this hyperactive, hardcore, shotgun, restlessness of seeking, seeking more, going harder. These 5 hindrances make it impossible for us to have a conscious experience of our present moment awareness. So present moment awareness is basically the alpha and the omega. It is where it starts, and it is also where it leads when we can break through these hindrances, these blocks. Yeah, but for that, we have to become first aware of our resistances, and that was what July mostly was about, to see or consciously witness our own sort of, where we like block ourselves, where sabotage, but also where we just run into this super resistance. Okay, and this coming month here, August, is about recognizing and consciously experiencing, well, our coping. So that is linked to our desire. It's linked to all these hindrances, but mostly our desire. Okay, that's our ego's way of creating pleasure, to create this sort of instant high, just to get past, just to get through. And again, here, just as a reminder, the ego is something we all need, and it's good for that, to help us to get through situations temporarily when they're too overwhelming for us, when our nervous system basically can't handle it. But they're not long-term navigation coordinates. Okay, they're just like literally, to get through the hours of storm, and then we need to go into a more sophisticated place with this and reflect and go within. And if you're really good at self-mastery, you can go within in the midst of the storm, and be, as one heart warrior today formulated it, to be in the eye of the storm, in the eye of the hurricane, as it occurs, as it is sort of part of your outer condition. We need to know how to work this. And it's very complex. That's where also where foods come in, where exercise comes in, and of course our daily routines. August will be a really big part of what we need to figure out. We really need to figure out how to work our nervous system. Why? All right, so let's look into this here now with the forecast for August 2020. Because August is one big trigger. The world's going to get unhinged gradually. Every month. The next 6 months is a gradual getting more and more out of control. The world. It doesn't mean that your life has to become unhinged, has to become out of control. All right. But when I say this to you, I'm pointing directly at what we just talked about, namely your ability to even see through this and to calm yourself down and to make wise choices, as opposed to going into that restricted place of unwise choices, unhealthy choices, things that just get you by, all right, that keep you or pretend to keep you in your comfort zone. Because quite frankly, there is not going to be a comfort zone anymore soon. Okay, and this may sound a little gloomish. I don't mean it that way. I just want to like really help you guys to be aware of why this is so important here to listen. Okay, to listen to your own system and to be very observant, to be in that witnesser mode that allows you to determine and to take an active role in that transformation process. Otherwise, you're just going to feel like run over, swept away, and like a victim. So growing into your spiritual intelligence and embodying it, which from my point of view energetically is part 2 of spiritual intelligence, the topic of July. Okay, so we're going into the advanced mode here. Okay, namely the higher perception and the better understanding of what it actually is that we are feeling. And when I say feeling, I don't just refer to my emotions, obviously, or to our emotions. There's a distinct difference between sensing, emoting, thinking, and feeling. And then, of course, we also have the interpreting and other components of our higher cognitive functions. But when it comes to just like our sort of input system, right, where signals come in, okay, we can get signals through our body, we can get signals through emotions, we can get signals through our mind in various ways, or we can get signals from sort of a feeling component in us, all right, that just, makes us feel things. Again, here, linguistically, the English language does not really allow this distinction between emoting and feeling, because emoting is an emotional signal, okay, whereas a feeling can be more than that. In fact, it can actually be all of the previous ones together, okay. It can come as an emotion, as a physical sensation, and a thought, and create sort of a context for us. So that's really what we're up to facing here in August. Whereas July triggered the need to better understand what we're collectively experiencing. Now it's about finding out what our personal role in this might be and how we can really take charge of that, how we can make purpose for ourselves in this sort of big global transformation. And the month starts out with a reset. I don't know if you guys have already noticed this the last couple of days. We're like a big old reset, as if somebody's pushed the off button, and then for a moment, a day or so, everything stood still, a really eerie nothingness. And the system now is slowly starting to run up again. Okay, and every time this happens, okay, there's like some kind of like, it's like an upgrade, right? It's like when you turn your computer on and there's an automatic update happening in your system. So that's when all the stuff that was bugged, that didn't work very well, got improved, where we now need to apply the learned so that we can move forward in a higher degree of functioning. So many of us are feeling really tired right now. That's not just the energetically sensitives, that's actually everybody. Energetically sensitives feel this more as a heaviness, or also like a lack of groundedness right now, so like a bit floaty. Okay, but mostly because our nervous system is so tired out. It's a form of adrenal fatigue, okay, where we've now over the course of what, like 3, 4, 5 months since the corona situation started, I just got bombarded with all those internal stressors, okay, hormones, neurotransmitters, autonomous nervous system reaction, fears, and so forth. So the good thing about August is that it can also bring in a lot of clarity. Okay. But right now, most people are in this place where they have been waiting, or where they have been seeking, and it's sort of like an endless loop. It's kind of like an endless kind of thing, and they're tired of it. And they're getting very frustrated about it. So, on a global scale, here we're looking at 6 months, 7, 8 months of really strong social chaos, okay, due to many aspects here that I have previously illuminated, such as financial system resetting, the economy, social values, and so forth. A lot of new sort of paradigms coming in here, and of course, these big questions with, are we going to have vaccines? Are we going to have mandatory vaccines? Are we going to be forced to be doing it? Are they going to put a chip in us and things like that? So there's a lot of stress that we all have to deal with here right now. And it's getting to the point where we can no longer just hunker down. Okay. So these incoming August energies, they show us massive shifts ahead. Some of you can feel this already. And it's something that has to happen in our perception now. Our perception changes our perspective, and whenever our perspective changes, that means the context changes, and that's when we can actually begin to see purpose and meaning in things, if we have the right alignment. So now it's really about us double checking on our alignment. What are we actually in for here? Okay, so for some of you, August is going to be an opportunity for a makeover, really, because we have this time window here for the next 4 weeks, where we can still do a lot of things. We can do a lot of corrections right now, and there are some things that I've already recommended in other publications, such as dealing with our finances now in a different way. Really getting prepared for these changes ahead and taking things into our own hands. I've mentioned this in the not sure which one it was, but definitely in the Truth Talk about money and finances. Okay, so now it's really, come to the point where we realize that this corona situation, pandemics, that's not just a fluke. Okay, this is real. This is happening. This is going to be with us for at least another year and a half, and it might not even be the only one. Okay, so I'm just putting this out there, that pandemics are something that we're going to have to learn to live with, guys. But it's really now on us here to move into a more self-responsible stance with this, and take our future into our own hands. And this is where many of you are in a crisis right now of, who am I? What is my purpose? And how can I do something with more meaning? So that really, in and of itself, guys, is a gift. Okay, because this question, for more meaning, okay, is a wonderful shift in alignment from just trying to get by, just paying the bills or maintaining comfort zone, into like higher vibratory goals. In and of itself, for me, as an energy healer, as an energy worker, is a gift for our collective, and also why I'm so upbeat about this crisis and this chaos, because I know that this is giving us a realistic chance now. This is finally, actualizing. Okay, and we just now have to participate. Okay, if we resist all this and see this as a something that we don't want, and seek for answers on the outside, and translate our fear of the unknown future into like blaming onto others and so forth, uh, it's going to be very rough for us. And there's several triggers here throughout August. I'm going to give you dates here in a few minutes that you have to be careful, okay? Because it's going to trigger. It's going to push all your buttons, okay? So for August, my main energy tip is to be very practical, to be very pragmatic, okay? And in regards to spiritual awareness, okay, to really move into this higher perception, okay? This isn't about being special and being spiritual and vegan and all of that because of what other people think of you. This is about you really meaning it, whatever it is that you choose, you know, and whatever it is that is true to you, okay? And some of you need a little more courage here. So that is something that you'll have to work for, okay? That courage to break through your comfort zone and to get out of your freeze, out of these 5 hindrances of self-mastery, okay? Without that sort of courage, okay, you just gonna feel like a bouncy ball in August, all right? So it's very important to be truthful with ourselves, to stay in truth with ourselves, to know what our truth is, and to really make an effort to stay present. It will come down to our daily routines, guys, our rituals, our ceremonies, to our daily habits, be it on a physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and or energetic level, all of them in their own balance, to be able to stay present. Yeah. So I strongly recommend that you really assess, your daily routines, your daily rituals, protocols, and approaches, okay, that you reassess them, because they need to be adopted now, in times of working from home, in times of social distancing and so forth. Some things that we used to do in the past that we took for granted are simply not possible anymore, okay? So this is now the time to step into your own authority. All right. And of course, along with that, also to decide whom you can trust, whom you feel supported by. A lot of people forming these social bubbles right now. So this is a mega trend here for the next 20 years. Home, family, security, social bubbles. And some of the industries that will derive out of this, okay, that will serve this, okay. So if you're looking for a good business, make sure that it caters to these topics, okay? Now, collectively, it's to be expected that the global population now gets into this, place of really wanting to have answers. So we are looking at a lot of uncoverings, revelations, new stuff coming from really shocking things. It's not gonna stop, guys. I mean, I see this all the way through to February, that we're going to find out more and more stuff that we were just literally blind for, that flew under our radar, as far as politics, as far as like industries is concerned, as far as the banking and the financial system is concerned. Yes, we are in the uncovering of truth, the confrontation with untruth phase, okay? Learning what we're not, learning what is not true, so that we can grow. And so that we can go beyond our, sort of pre-programmed by our nervous system, sympathy and antipathy, and move into this higher level of that, which is empathy, to really look at the larger picture, what is best for the greater good for all, for the planet, for the animals, for the plants, for the economy, for people, for myself, for our children, for everybody. Not in the sense of conforming or pleasing, but in the sense of like what's conducive, what is true, what is integrous. So for that, we need to actively work on calming our system, like knowing how we can recharge, how we can recover, how we can protect this sacred current of life force, our energy that runs through us, and manage it better. How to tap into our parasympathetic nervous system, how to activate that, how to reduce all the inflammatory and acidic energy or, condition that we create here through our, lack of exercise, dehydration, and really unwise choices, food choices. Okay, and for some of you, it means we need to brush up on education, but for most of us, it really is about just practically doing it. So yes, I strongly recommend that you start the day with a good routine, and not with what some of the success coaches recommend, to make a list, to-do list of things that you want to accomplish. No, go with accomplish something right away, whatever it is. Best, you tackle the one thing that you're most lazy about or that you are mostly resisting first. Okay, and maybe have something like a journal or a diary where you just sort of take note of how you're feeling, make an effort to distinguish more between your physical sensations, your emotions, the thoughts that you're having come in, maybe some of the dreams that you've had, visions or so forth, take note of that, go into this stronger interaction, into this communication with yourself, all right, and also see how you formulate that. If you can detect sort of a real negative or self-defeating kind of communication with yourself, rather than really being uplifting and empowering and encouraging yourself. And also, of course, sometimes the people that you surround yourself with. Okay, but one thing is for sure now, guys, that dependencies and all the stuff that comes with this emotional manipulation and all the stuff that has been sort of holding you back like molasses here in these last 5 months, where you've externalized your needs onto others and where you've given away your power. Okay, you need to claim that. You need to really step into that authority now here, because emotionally you're going to get really hammered. Okay, that's a massive whooping that we all going to get here with our reactionary triggers that we have, to pull us into our coping, into just trying to get by, hunkering down. Okay, so yes, it'll come down to our courage. Okay, and proving to ourselves that we can make a difference, that we can change. It's in that inner experience and allowing ourselves the space and the time also to experience that, because we have to have these timeouts where we can even feel it, give ourselves that time to feel our needs, and then we can also see how that mentally plays out, and where the roots of our negativity and pessimism are, and how it actually plays out, how we express this. It's extremely important for us to consciously work on clarity. Okay, so if you fogged up and don't know how you feel about something or think about something, or you're not aware of how you're expressing it, you need to take a break. You need to take a time out there, and breathe, and go into this present moment awareness, compassionate attention routine, and feel within. Okay, the more congruent your expression becomes, the less fear you'll experience. The more adequate you'll feel about yourself. Now, socially, in regards to our relationship and work and so forth, it's going to be a challenging month here in August. I'll have to realize that nobody has the right answers. Okay, nobody knows the answer. There is no such thing anymore as right answer. The only answer that we can shoot for is what is true and authentic and congruent, as best as we can see or understand. But there's this really cool exchange that we can have with people that are like-minded, with people that are sort of vibrationally on the same, sort of alignment path here that we are, and August is a really, really good month for strategic alliances. Okay, where we can sort of work on things together. It's really, really cool for business alliances, and well, also maybe, you know, like moving together, maybe, you know, something that some of you might have never really considered before, room sharing or something, but in a positive way, that so that it actually creates a win-win situation. I know, something that you wouldn't be able to afford on your own with your own resources. So it's resource sharing, you know, that's really going to increase in value in our view, you know, as opposed to where before we all wanted to sort of to reinvent the wheel and be all special and call it our own, you know, owning and having and seeking. All that is going to get less now. So if you're still on that train, okay, you're going to feel a lot of resistances here in the future. So our ability to work with others and to go into this mutual exchange and not to see others as hostile, you know, is then really what will help us to feel hope and faith and optimism. Okay, we can see a future again. And spiritually, that is then really what this global crisis, or, you know, this collective situation, this collective karmic situation that we're in here right now, can show us. It brings massive opportunities for spiritual growth and self-mastery, because we're kind of forced to doing it, to becoming more authentic, to becoming more integrous. Yeah, we have to deal more consciously with reality, or else we just get swept away. And spiritually, that's a wonderful place to be in, this confrontation with untruth, because it reminds us of the power within through our inner experience or experience, the inner energetic experience of something. You know, to have that and to verify that for yourself is probably sort of the biggest spiritual emergence and part of sort of awakening in a person. It's like this free choice, you know, this discovery, this self-discovery of your inner power. Okay, not somebody say so, or some aliens, or something that comes from the outside. No, but really experiencing how that awareness of your inner power to make a difference, how that can help you to grow beyond your outer conditions or the limitations, or that which your ego couldn't see before. So from that spiritual standpoint, it's a wonderful month for us, but it doesn't come with ease. Okay, so we're really going to have to work on these sort of self-selective steps to go into our own authority. Okay, and that requires us to brush up on our energetic awareness, on our vocabulary, on systematic self-discovery, you know, learning our own energy, you know, understanding the difference between what is true to us, what isn't, also the difference between power and force. You know, when we're actually trying to force something, we're not in truth. When we are in truth, then we don't need to force anything, and we can then experience how sort of manifestation and abundance happen as sort of organically, as a natural consequence of us being authentic and being in this congruent place with ourselves. So it's all about embodiment, guys, in August. A big challenge and a wonderful opportunity as always. Most of these trigger points here in August are really around the collective experience. Okay, so you just gonna have to know what your compass is to not get swept away by it. Here, right at the beginning of August, big reset, big sort of whoa news, you know, flashes that will create a lot of sort of insecurity, fear, and negativity in us. Okay, so we're gonna have to wiggle our way through that. And one of the things that I've already predicted here in these last months is that we're going to have, you know, lots of like really severe weather patterns and earth changes compounding on top of everything. So I'm seeing us here in Florida really getting pounded by hurricanes at least 3 times in this season. And it starts right at the beginning of August, guys. I'm reading the weather forecast every day because I'm expecting literally the first week of August to be a big sort of whoa. It's literally sort of the focal point of 2020. It brings in everything energetically. I would have to describe this as it culminated on in 1 or 2 days, 3rd, 4th, 5th of August. Okay, everything, this whole sort of transformation energy, this well, the loss or lack, the disappointment, and this really strong need to resort, in our own resources, our own empathy, and not to go with sympathy and antipathy, or likes and dislikes, gratification and avoiding pain, but to go into a place of seeing the opportunity in those outer triggers. Right, another one is this whole time between the 13th and the 16th August, so the middle of the month, brings a lot of pain, brings a lot of ego pain. Again, okay, there's collective karmic stuff that, and perhaps maybe also in sort of the replicative of a smaller version in your families, okay, that is triggered here for all of us in our 3D experience, and it will shake us to the core, of our, belonging and where we're from, and there's a big correction that needs to be done. And then we'll get a cool trigger too, but this can also lead to sort of this hyperactivity and seeking more and more and harder and trying harder to hang on to something that is no longer, right around the 19th, 20th of August, where we, on one hand, will have more clarity about things because we're no longer shocked, really, but we don't quite yet have the empathy that we need. The empathy is always the middle, it's the equilibrium of the pendulum. It's like neither antipathy nor sympathy. Empathy is right in the middle, the synthesis of both, where you processed, your likes, your dislikes, you're wanting to run away and trying to attack something, and come to this sort of common sense. There's no good word for this in the English language. I was looking for a word a while back, the heart mind, where you like have this sort of think feel awareness, okay, where you can feel and think and really see the larger perspective that allows you to really stand in the middle, grounded and with a sort of clear sense of pragmatism, what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. And then at the very end of August, once more, a big fear trigger. So another, like, yeah, I'm telling you, this is like this compressed time, I know, compounding, and we'll really see, that a lot of the things that we used to believe in, that they really weren't based on truth, and that it's time, okay, that, things are going the wrong way. This can mean that, we might see the beginnings of war or something like this, sort of just the excess and decadence of externalizing things and blaming others. People are starting to just hack nations, are starting to go against another. It doesn't have to lead to war, but it's definitely these warlike energies that I have been talking about since May. So all of this now, not quite, really at a point where we can say, okay, I've learned the lesson. No, we are just right in the middle of it right now. And energetically, the chakras, for those of you who are interested here in August, that are triggered the most, is the first. That's this like really sort of shaking experience, losing our bearings, And then our third and fifth, that's our ego field, like really strong, you know, that ego struggle. And at the same time, we have this like hyperactive 6th and 7th chakra. So there are lots of dreams, lots of visions, apocalyptic, you know, because that reflects sort of the collective unconscious right now. So that we can really see this, the beauty of this inner transformation opportunity for big things to move and to break free from all these inner prisons, okay, to its more fulfillment and purpose and meaning for our lives. And I see many of you guys really grown into sort of community things as well as I will here. It's a big shift here at transCODES as well, and big things are about to happen here. So see how you can, you know, move into more meaning and more purpose, not just for yourself, but also for the greater good of all, without going into this white shadow, sort of sacrificial and specialness type of serving, you know, the unhealed healer, but really, you know, it coming from the true need, you know, the true desire, wanting to be of service, you know, but from a standpoint of putting the oxygen mask on yourself first before you try to help others. So this concludes the forecast for August 2020. Have a wonderful August.